Saying that Paris is Burning is a controversial documentary is an understatement. Think about it. A white woman spending 7 years filming a community that society had decided to ignore. Black, Latino, queer, poor, living in the margins of New York while AIDS was killing everyone around them. The film itself is beautiful, a community built on love, chosen families, and survival. But what happened behind the scenes is a completely different story. There was exploitation, there were lawsuits, there were deaths. One of them while the camera was still rolling. Today we are going to get into the truth behind Paris is Burning, one of the most important documentaries ever made.
You feel 100% right. I want to date somebody.
So Jennie Livingston, the director, graduated from Yale.
So Jennie Livingston, so you were at Norfolk from Yale in '83. And
That's correct,
just
yeah.
tell me.
And what did she do after? She spent 7 years in the basements of Harlem, filming a community that society had decided didn't exist. Well, no, it didn't start that way. In 1985, fresh out of college, Livingston took a job at a local newspaper, the Staten Island Advance. She hated it. She quit. She had no film school background, no connections, no money, just a camera and a habit of walking around New York looking at people. One afternoon in Washington Square Park, she saw something she had never seen before. A group of young men striking poses, moving in ways she couldn't explain. So she asked what they were doing. They said they were voguing, and if she wanted to see more, she needed to go find Willie Ninja. So she did. And for 2 years, she attended balls with nothing but a cassette recorder because she had no money to film. She just listened. She built relationships. She learned the names, the rules, the hierarchies. And slowly, she realized something. As she later said, all of the things that James Baldwin wrote about were in this ballroom. How do we construct our identity? How do you live in a consumerist society while not having access? How do you love yourself when you don't look like what society says you're supposed to look like?
In a ballroom, you can be anything you want. You're not really an executive, but you're looking like an executive. And therefore, you're showing the straight world that I can be an executive.
The problem was money. Nobody wanted to fund a documentary about Black and Latino gays, queers, and drag queens in Harlem. Distributors told her directly that no one will ever see that. So she sold her car. She borrowed $5,000 from her aunt. And in February 1986, she filmed her first ball, the Paris is Burning ball, at the Elks Lodge in Harlem. With that footage, she cut a 5-minute trailer, and she used that trailer to spend years knocking on doors, until she found 10 different funding sources willing to bet on something nobody believed in. So Livingston has her camera, she has her cassette recorder, and she has access to a world that nobody outside of Harlem even knew existed. The people she found were not actors. They were not looking for fame. They were Black and Latino, queer and trans, living in a New York that had decided they didn't matter. Some were homeless, some were sex workers, some were disowned by their families.
And why you down here? Where's your mother?
Hanging out. I don't have a mother.
Everybody has a mother or we wouldn't be here. Where's your mother?
She's gone.
Where's your father?
He's gone too.
And every single one of them had found something that the rest of the world couldn't give them: the balls. The first person she really spent time with was Willie Ninja, the self-proclaimed godfather of Vogue. Then there was Dorian Corey, Pepper LaBeija, Venus Extravaganza, Angie Extravaganza, Octavia St. Laurent. Livingston spent time with all of them. She went to their homes. She interviewed them for hours. And when it came time to make it official, they signed contracts, standard release forms. Most of them didn't think twice about it. They just wanted to be seen, to be free.
And I'm as free as the wind that's blowing out on this beach.
By 1987, Livingston finally had enough money to shoot. 5 weeks. That was all she had. 5 weeks to capture a world that had been building for decades. And what she found inside those balls was something nobody outside of Harlem had ever seen. A community that had built its own universe, its own language, its own family structures, its own rules. People who had been rejected by everyone else had created something extraordinary together. The balls were their Oscars.
You know, ball is like our world, you know.
Balls to us is as close to reality as we're gonna get to all of that fame and fortune and stardom and spotlight.
From the outside, life was brutal. AIDS was killing people around them. The city had decided they didn't exist. Some of them were doing sex work to survive. Some were shoplifting clothes just to walk in the balls. But inside there was joy. Real joy. The kind you can't fake. And Livingston was capturing all of it. What she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the camera was also documenting something else. A world that was about to disappear. And then, on December 21st, 1988, while Livingston was still filming, Venus Extravaganza was found dead. She was 23 years old. Her body was discovered under a bed at the Duchess Hotel in New York. She had been strangled. 4 days had passed since her death before anyone found her. Her killer has never been identified. To this day, the case remains unsolved. Her house mother, Angie Extravaganza, was the one who had to identify the body, and then call Venus's biological parents to tell them what happened.
I had a booking for a Christmas show at Sally's, and the DTs came to me with a picture of her murdered, and they were about to cremate her because nobody had came to verify the body, and I was the one that had to give all this information down to her family. Actually, they found her dead after 4 days, strangled under a bed in a sleazy hotel in New York City.
I'm hungry.
We used to get dressed together, call each other, and say what we were gonna wear, and you know, she was like my right hand. As far as I'm concerned, I miss her. Every time I go anywhere, I miss her. That was the main daughter of my house, in other words. But that's part of life as far as being a transsexual in New York City and surviving.
And when Angie speaks about Venus's death in the documentary, she doesn't cry. She doesn't break down. No rage, no tears, just acceptance. Because for this community, death wasn't a shock. It was something they had learned to live alongside. They weren't asking for justice. They weren't asking for anyone to be outraged on their behalf. They were just trying to make it to the next day. And that's what makes that moment so devastating, how unsurprised everyone was by it. But the community kept going, not because they had forgotten, but because stopping wasn't an option. The balls continued, the houses continued. People who had lost friends, lovers, house members, they kept showing up, they kept competing, they kept voguing. Because for this community, joy was never the opposite of grief. It was the response to it.
I always had hopes of being a big star. Then I look, as you get older, you aim a little lower. And you say, well, yeah, you still might make an impression. Everybody wants to leave something behind them, some impression, some mark upon the world. And then you think, you left a mark on the world if you just get through it. And a few people remember your name. Then you left a mark. You don't have to bend the whole world. I think it's better to just enjoy it. Pay your dues and enjoy it. If you shoot an arrow and it goes real high, hooray for you.
In January 1991, Paris is Burning premiered at Sundance. And it won Grand Jury Prize for Best Documentary. Critics called it a masterpiece. The Los Angeles Times, the Washington Post, Time Magazine, everyone agreed it was one of the best films of the year. And then the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences completely ignored it. No Oscar nomination. Not even a consideration. The accusations were immediate. The Academy was homophobic. The Academy was transphobic. Because what else explains shutting out the most acclaimed documentary of the year? The film went on to tour festivals around the world. It made almost $4 million at the box office. An extraordinary number for an independent documentary in 1991. Livingston won awards. The film was praised everywhere it went. It defined what became known as new queer cinema. And the people in it? Pepper LaBeija said it to the New York Times directly. The film came out and nothing. They all got rich and we got nothing. Because those contracts, those standard release forms from WNYC television that nobody had explained to them, that they had signed without reading at the end of a long night, meant everything. They had signed away all rights. Paris Dupree, whose ball gave the film its name, planned to sue Livingston for $40 million. When her lawyer saw the contracts, she dropped the case. Octavia St. Laurent sued and won, but the settlement was never made public. Each participant eventually received approximately $5,000. $5,000 for a film that made $4 million. Livingston defended herself, saying that documentary filmmakers don't typically pay their subjects. Technically, she was right, but when your film wins at Sundance and the people who made it possible get $5,000 each, technically, right starts to feel like something else entirely. The ballroom community banned Livingston from their events permanently. She was never invited back. Paris is Burning remains, to this day, her only feature film. But life went on. The balls continued, the houses continued. For a moment, some of them even found opportunities they never had before. Willie Ninja was choreographing for supermodels. Octavia St. Laurent was getting modeling work. The film had put them on the map, even if it hadn't put money in their pockets. But outside those ballrooms, the world was still the same world that had always ignored them. And one by one, it started taking them. Kim Pendavis, heart failure. He was in his 20s. Angie Extravaganza died of AIDS in 1993. She was 28 years old. 3 weeks after her death, the New York Times published a full article about the ball scene, with her photo on the front of the style section. Dorian Corey, AIDS, August 29th, 1993, 56 years old. After she died, her friend and caregiver Lois Taylor went to her Harlem apartment to go through her belongings. Corey had been a fashion designer and costumer. Her apartment was full of sequined gowns, feather boas, bolts of fabric. Taylor brought 2 men with her, looking for Halloween costumes to sell. They were going through the closet when they found a large green garment bag on the floor. Taylor tried to lift it. She couldn't. It was too heavy. She handed one of the men a pair of scissors. He cut it open. The smell hit them immediately. Inside, wrapped in imitation leather and plastic bags, was a body in the fetal position. A man, shot once in the head. Police were called. Detectives carefully unwrapped the layers. The body was identified as Robert Bobby Worley, a convicted rapist who had served 3 years in Sing Sing prison and hadn't been seen by his family since the late 1960s. Police believed he had been dead for at least 20 years, possibly 25, sitting in Dorian Corey's closet, while she performed, while she filmed Paris is Burning. The theory, never proven, is that Worley was Corey's abusive ex-boyfriend, that she killed him in self-defense during a violent confrontation, and then, alone in her Harlem apartment, she wrapped the body herself and hid it in a trunk. Nobody was ever charged. The case remains officially unsolved. Pepper LaBeija. Diabetes took both her feet before a heart attack took her life in 2003. She was 54. Willie Ninja, the godfather of Vogue, the man whose moves Madonna took to the mainstream, died of AIDS in 2006. He was 46. Octavia St. Laurent died of cancer in 2009. She was 45. Paris Dupree, whose ball gave the film its name, who felt ripped off her entire life, died in 2011. Of all the main subjects of Paris is Burning, only 3 are still alive today: Freddie Pendavis, Sol Pendavis, and Junior LaBeija. They are, quite literally, the last ones standing. And Jennie Livingston, the white woman from Yale who walked into their world with a camera, is also still alive. She was there to receive every award, every accolade, every screening. While most of the people who made the film possible never lived to see it added to the National Film Registry in 2016. But here's the thing, without Livingston, none of this exists. No documentary, no record, no Venus on screen talking about her dreams, no Dorian Corey explaining shade to the world. These people would have lived and died in complete anonymity, unknown outside of a few blocks in Harlem. She gave them visibility when nobody else would, and that matters. So, was Jennie Livingston right? Was there nobody else who was going to make that film? Probably not, and that's the most uncomfortable truth of all of this. Without Paris is Burning, Venus Extravaganza is just A trans woman found strangled under a bed in a New York hotel. No name, no face, no dreams on record. Without this film, Dorian Corey, Pepper LaBeija, Willie Ninja, they live and die in complete anonymity. Madonna took their dance to #1 in 30 countries. The fashion industry that once sent spies to steal their ideas now openly celebrates a culture they spent decades ignoring. Pose won Emmy Awards telling their stories. The Met Gala now features voguing performances. Celebrities built careers on aesthetics that came directly from those basements in Harlem. The whole world is wearing their culture, quoting their words, dancing their dances. They just never got paid for it. And that's what makes Paris is Burning so hard to sit with. It's not a simple story of exploitation. It's not a simple story of heroism. It's both at the same time. A white woman walked into a world that wasn't hers and made something that preserved it forever and profited from it while the people inside that world died one by one. Controversial? Yes. Disturbing? Absolutely. But also irreplaceable, because the alternative wasn't justice. The alternative was silence.